Good morning, everyone. And here we are with our glamour discussion. And we've been at this for quite a while, it looks like, about 130 plus programs, I think, and yeah, something like that. And, well, it's an extraordinary kind of thing that's going on in the world today. I think there's a fourth ray glamour that we need to look at. It's kind of interesting. It's called the glamour of confused combat. Constant combat, confused combat. It seems that the very first response of some people is to take things that can be worked out in a peaceable and sustained manner into the field of aggression. And after that is completed, of course, there is the tendency of the fourth ray type to try to make a degree of peace. Alexander the Great was that way. He would conquer first and then adopt the habits for the sake of peace of the conquered parties. That's a little different from the sixth ray, which always seeks definitely to overcome. Both involve combat. But at the present time, again, the world, especially the Middle East, is thrown into this through sort of whimsical decisions which have no continuity, are not thought through, which deprive the participants of a stable basis, and which are, in the last analysis, even traitorous. So we're going to see a lot of that kind of thing during the next few years, when the forces opposing the forerunning of the hierarchy and the Christ, or the announcement, or the prediction, or the information, the forces which oppose will throw everything they have in the direction of obstruction. And that's why they are sometimes called not just the forces of materialism, but the forces of obstruction. And that tends to be involved with the lower part of Saturn, or at least a low response to the planet Saturn. Saturn and Mars, relating to Capricorn and Scorpio, are very important planets and signs to bring us into the spiritual hierarchy, but at the same time, they can form the battleground which can prevent entry. The constant warfare and the rigid, unbending, unadaptable attitudes, these can prevent the entrance into the deeper possibilities. Let's just sort of link up with each other here in a moment or two of silence. And we know why we have gathered, and we simply offer ourselves as an instrument to help clear especially the astral plane of its distortions, but these days the lower mental plane has joined with astrality, and we have this Kama-manus, where we can't keep our thinking and our feeling quite distinct as we should be able to do. It's just that always the two are mixed. And we have to learn how to function within that mixture. And in terms of objectivity of mind, well, maybe we can have some of that skill and that perspective as we look at the causes of various glamours and their unhappy results, and then apply the ability to visualize quite the opposite and the defeat of these various miasmas which mislead us so badly. I mean, here we are studying esotericism, and we know we have issues still with glamour. And we can only imagine what the situation is with humanity as a whole that doesn't even suspect that glamour is a difficult and obstructive, distorting type of activity. As a matter of fact, glamour is looked at as good, and it's used commercially and so forth to mislead people into a trap. And they become, you'll recognize the word, they become enthralled by the glamour. And now those are words which seem to carry, for some, a positive note. But both of them have to do with imprisonment, really. So we work behind the scenes with some knowledge of these matters, and under the direction of Master DK, who has given us methods and techniques. Okay, well, look, I just want to welcome you, and then we'll get into, today we have to finish our work with the individual glamours, and we're still in the middle of the seventh ray work. We began that last time, and then we'll be ready to go on with the book. Now, these may be individual glamours, but they certainly apply to humanity as a whole as well. And DK is always saying, look, I can't give you all the glamours. They are legion, which means, you know, in a way, countless. So we have to assume that every one of us has our own particular variety of some of the more standard ray glamours, which basically prevent us from seeing the truth, and which mislead us with deluding, erroneous desires, which lead nowhere good, and further perhaps ensnare our life in the lower worlds. So we are seeking freedom from all of that, that's for sure. And we seek freedom for humanity the best we can, knowing that every little bit that we contribute using the occult techniques will help a little bit in this general freeing. The actual, I think, you know, in a way, our first work is to clear the etheric planes. And there are meditations to do this. You'll go into the rays and the initiations, and you'll find in rule number 10 powerful techniques to help to clean out the courts, the etheric courts, which have been established there. You know, how does it go? I guess impulsion and distortion. You know, that is similar, and separation, and finally aspiration. Those are the four factors which have to be cleared out. But somewhere in the next several hundred years, and probably once Vulcan is especially established as a real planet and viewed, we will mount our attack upon glamour, and it won't just be a few of us. It will be large percentages of humanity who will know what's at stake. Okay, so just want to say hello to you, and glad you're here, Alexandra and Anna and Annette and Ario, Barbara, Catherine, Chris, Hideko, Karen and Kim, Leslie, Margot, Martha, and Michael, and Natney, and Nyanka, Risto, and Tio. Tio is around here somewhere. She looks like she's having a little trouble here, but she's in italics. Maybe she'll be back, hopefully. And Vicky and Veronica. And over here on the other side, Joe and Tuya and myself. Okay. So here we are. And it says we did not finish race 7. No, we certainly didn't. And a matter of fact, really, I may have done a little bit of the first part, but I just want to repeat some of these negativities that we're all quite familiar with. It's amazing what Blavatsky said about all of us, and maybe she was also speaking of herself, but she said until you're an arhat, which is a 4th degree initiate, you are an unconscious black magician, meaning you haven't cleared selfishness out of your intentions. And therefore, when you strive for something, you have mixed motives. And that's really what black magic is all about, to use the powers of manifestation and also the powers which force kind of a disappearance. You know, how magicians, in the usual sense of the word, are either making something appear or disappear. That until we are the 4th degree, we cannot help but use these magical powers for selfish ends, and maybe there are degrees to which the selfishness applies. So it's very difficult at first to be selfless in your pursuits. We have seen some of the groups that utilize magical ritualistic methods. Masonry is a good one because it does it right. But there are other groups which took their partial inspiration from people like Aleister Crowley, and were operative even before he was around, the Golden Dawn group, which could not help but emphasize egotism, and the worker in magic became the center of things, and there was no humility. The idea was to be more and more exalted, and the idea that he who would be first among you, let him be your servant. You know, the whole idea of servant leadership and so forth that we've developed today, and the idea that the truly serving disciple does not emphasize the grandeur of his personality, that was not brought forward. So you see this tremendous, I've read through some of these things, and whoa, it's like you're just building yourself up into some sort of false, exalted position. So we have to be very careful about that, because there's so many glamours that just descend upon the individual when they get involved in a certain type of magical process. You know, the ray of order and ceremonial magic, especially Uranus and Jupiter are involved. Jupiter is not discussed so much by the Tibetan, but if you read carefully and what he's included at the end of the astrology book and maybe in Cosmic Fire, you will discover that the ceremonial aspect of magic is really ruled by Jupiter, and the reformative, reform, a new form aspect by Uranus, particularly. Okay, this is interesting. The power to sit upon the fence. Well, we did discuss it till the selfish values emerge. It's very subtle, and it refuses to use the power for good to help the emergence of the good values. And this is a way of avoiding blame, and but one knows that not taking action here will lead to a selfish result. Now, this is maybe unusual, disorder and chaos through a misunderstanding of the plan. Well, let's just say the seventh ray types, they really like to have a plan. And they want to know in sequence what it is they're supposed to do. But what if they get it wrong? What if they are too cramped and confined in their understanding of the plan? What if they're emphasizing form too much? Then they're working against the direction of the divine plan, and the result is a flowing together of energies which are disruptive towards each other. So you might not think of the consequences of emphasizing form excessively and having the wrong idea about what is really required, but it can be extremely delaying and disruptive, and all the things that are built that are incorrect have to be destroyed. Here's one called the wrong use of speech to bring about chosen objectives. We know that magical words and mantric phrases are associated with this particular ray. And we also know that this is the case with the second ray to an extent, the use of usually quite positive mantrams. But in this particular case, there's such a desire to see things emerge from one's own energy system, from one's speech, from one's hand, that again, there can be mistakes about what it is that is supposed to emerge. And so the wrong things are manifested, but unfortunately manifested rather well. So, people manage to create their own reality, and it is frictional with the true plan. I'm calling this kind of the abuse of mantric power. I suppose there are negative words of power, curses, and things of that nature. You read some of those old, what are they called? I haven't gotten much into it, but I've just kind of seen what they look like. The grimoires. Grimoire is what they're called. And they're filled with negative magic and all kinds of abuses against your enemies, and maybe they are to a degree effective. So that is a problem potentially with the selfish, short-sighted type on this ray. Untruth is a bit like sitting on the fence, It's not the assertion of the lie so much, it's the willingness simply to live in a structure that does not correspond to the structure proposed by the divine plan and purpose. So, it's a passive uh, kind of relation uh, to truth, which doesn't seem to care whether it emerges or not. Because this is an unusual use of the term, wouldn't you agree? So the person sort of hides away from the truth and does not actively promote it. Now, obviously, a high being on this ray would, but we're talking about the earlier days when we're misusing energy. Then we come to sex magic and, well, can you can you sell a motorcycle without sex magic? I wonder. Um, and always the people that drive these vehicles are the best looking people, powerful people, and they have this attractiveness about them, and the attractiveness toward the person is supposed to be transferred to the vehicle itself. So you begin by having an attraction under the law of attraction, and you end up buying the vehicle. It's used all the time in the commercial area. When banks are advertising themselves, everybody in the pictures are happy, and retirees look like they have another 50 years to live and so forth. So what we're doing here is using a type of magnetism which is meant for something entirely different, and we're using it for materialistic purposes. And we have to think about what that could mean. Now, let's see. There are a few more. Yeah. But let's stop here and discuss a little bit your responses to these glamours, and they do straighten themselves out eventually. Now let's see. What I'm understanding here is that I may have, I'm understanding we went through that a little bit, but let's do it again, and then we will definitely finish these some 8 glamours here that are listed before us. Then we will work the next time with something newer, something. We'll continue with the...
Michael, did you notice that Kim has a question?
No, because in the beginning I don't much take questions, but
well, I think this might be one you may want to put off, or you may want to answer. She says, where do we find these clearing out techniques?
Oh, they're right in the book. They're right in the book. As a matter of fact, when we meditate, Kim, the technique of light, the technique of indifference to clear Maya, the technique of identification or something of that nature, and that's to clear illusion. So right in the Glamour book, what we've been working with, the meditation at the end of every program, is one of the techniques, and we're particularly using the technique of light because it focuses on the glamour. So we don't have too far to go to use what we're supposed to use. And as a matter of fact, today we'll be working on this constant combat, this confused combat in the fourth kingdom of nature, which seems to, fight first and think later. Those kinds of attitudes, they're right in the book, and we're going to use the technique of light to help combat them. Okay, so he didn't have us go very far. He created these things for us to use, and we do. Okay? All right. Right. So does anybody want to say anything about these? Seventh ray is very subtle and works almost magically and undetected, and with the idea of perverting the proper form, it works behind the scenes. There's a lot of work that will be done in the age of magicians into which we are entering. Now, DK says, okay, you train yourself now in white magic, because before long you're going to be confronting the purely mental magicians who are not using the energy of love or goodwill. They just want results, and mostly they want results for their own selfish purposes. So two types of magicians will come together in a battle during the Aquarian Age, and they'll both of them use techniques that work. But the thing is that white magic is the magic of the soul, and what the soul seeks to manifest, not just what we dream up that might be nice to manifest because we will find it satisfying. Okay? So Uranus is very strong, and so is Jupiter, if you think about it, very strong in Aquarius. And we have a 2,000 plus age of Aquarius, maybe 2,160 years, or maybe DK gives us sometimes the figure rounded off of 2,500 years. There'll be much magical process during the coming age, and we have to make sure we're on the right side of it and know how to use the heart and not just the mind and the will. Okay, anybody want to say something about these difficulties that are listed here? Problems, and Joe, you can help me find people if they want to speak.
You do have a hand, and that hand is Karen.
Okay. Okay, and then I see Anne Veronica with something. Okay, here we go. Okay. Karen, go ahead, please.
Yes, Michael, the power to sit upon the fence till selfish values emerge and untruth, which you were saying is a passive relationship to the truth. So I'm thinking about Ray 7, and I guess I never thought about that related to Ray 7, and in myself as well, because I'm not a sitter upon the fence person.
No.
But I recognize this is one of the things actually, it bothers me about people. So maybe it is something that I have.
I know what you mean. When people really, really bother us, we better look at why that is so.
Yeah. So that's what I'm kind of surprised at that. So
yeah. Well, thanks for that thought. Look, Soviet. Well, it's not Soviet anymore, but Russia is the seventh ray soul. Now look how they operate when it comes to surreptitious negative activity. No one's going to detect them. It's extremely subtle. They are promoting something in a subtle way, which is not true. And sometimes when they see things going in their direction, look, I'm not talking about the Russian people and their great potential. Not at all. Not at all. Because they have the New World religion will emerge out of Russia. But there's something about the way the leadership has adopted certain seventh ray abilities that allow them to stand by while and manipulate in such a way that negative values emerge, and they don't have to do much because they're very, very intelligent, and they don't have to correct what is wrong. They let other people do what is wrong, and we're seeing this in the political sphere at the moment. We're going to see a lot more of it. And when you go into Congress and you go into political gatherings and so forth, there are people who realize that to take a definite, visible commitment would jeopardize them with their voters or whatever. But they know that if they maintain a certain position, as if they are thinking about it and so forth, that the values which are negative and which they want to emerge will emerge, and they will not have a risk. They will not have to take the risk.
Yeah, so I call that kind of an enabling.
Okay. Why not? Why not?
Yeah.
That sounds right to me. And we're seeing a lot of this right now. Well, we can also see it. We can see it in a positive way too. There are some frightened representatives and senators. They might lose their job. They don't exactly approve of what's going on, but they stay quiet and they say, well, we haven't made our decision yet. That would be going in the other direction. DK says that when it comes to politics, the first ray, the sixth ray, and the seventh ray are the rays to watch, because those are the political workers. So there's a hiding quality, a masking quality, an intelligence that knows where things are going, but will not venture forth and state the obvious. So it's a kind of a cowardice in a strange way among some of the people. They won't take the risk. You know how we have an industry in our society, and so the many advanced societies, we call it the security industry. In other words, you have the watchmen, the guards, the people that are looking at the banks of television cameras. They just call it security. They set up the alarms and all the rest of it. That is really ruled by a lot of seventh ray people. They have some ray 5 in there, but they're into security. The locks, the keys, the passwords, the handprint, whatever, all of this. It also relates, of course, to getting into the ceremonies of the mysteries. You have to qualify to get in, and here on a much lower level, in order to pass from one room to another, you have to demonstrate who you are and all the rest. That type of security is ruled by the seventh ray. And the seventh ray people are always concerned with it, as well as their own security. Yeah, as well as their own security. So let's just say that are they the ones to stick their necks out, like the first ray and the sixth ray and all that? Not so much as those other rays. They're very guarded. And, in our own country, we see a funny thing going on. Of course, here I am in Finland right now, but I consider myself an American. And am an American citizen, although I spend a lot of time here and I'm learning a lot about this great country. We have Mr. Putin playing our president, and he doesn't have to do too much. He just has to be very cagey and not say too much, and let the negativity in the other stage the situations which Putin himself would like to see emerge. And surely they are emerging. I just have to say, I cannot believe the betrayal of allies, capricious betrayal of allies, and falling into the hands of people who are much more demagogic and non-democratic. I just have to say it. I'm just appalled, but this may work in a direction that is useful. I take my stand on this because obviously the form and formlessness are fighting each other at this time, and soul and personality are fighting each other at this time, and we really want the soul to emerge during the coming Aquarian age, and it is threatened, just as democracy is threatened. So let's, who are the players and who's being played? We have to watch very carefully.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah. Thank you, Karen. Thank you.
I just put a couple of quotations that I found from Senator Margaret Chase Smith. She was a senator at a time when there was a similar
I remember.
difficulty. And I think that there are two of them just for the group to review if you're interested. I think she's probably a sixth ray personality. I don't know. Sagittarius sun in the 10th house.
And Pisces.
So,
Pisces
yeah.
ascendant.
So anyway, yeah.
Yeah, and a real idealist here. Yeah, this is the two of the signs that have, and then not being afraid with that Leo moon, you do step forward. And with Sagittarius, you say what's on your mind, and with Pisces, you're willing to make the sacrifice. So yeah, she was very popular at a certain time and was a force for good. One of the basic causes for all the trouble in the world today is that people talk too much and think too little. Sagittarius actually is kind of interesting because it's a sign both of excessive talking and a sign of silence at the same time. They act too impulsively without thinking, and I'm not advocating the slightest that we become mutes with our voices stilled because of fear, of criticism of what we might say. Okay. That is moral cowardice, and boy, are we witnessing that today. And moral cowardice that keeps us from speaking our minds is as dangerous to this country as irresponsible talk. The right way is not always the popular and easy way. Standing for right, there's your sixth ray, right? When it is unpopular, is a true test of moral character. That's a wonderful quote, Joe. That's just excellent. And here, now what is this? Also, is it she again? Yes, it is. And what does she say? My creed. There it is. There's the belief. She's got sixth ray, Joe. My creed is that public service must be more than doing a job efficiently. And honestly, it must be a complete dedication to the people and to the nation, with full recognition that every human being is entitled to courtesy and consideration. Little seventh in there. That constructive criticism is not only to be expected but sought, that smears are not only to be expected but fought, that honor is to be earned but not bought. Isn't that kind of memorable? Now, by the way, Benjamin Franklin, he was, in my estimation, a seventh ray soul. Just 1 second here. What have I got going on here? I'll be right with you in just a second. And
we'll hang in here.
Yeah, well, you're done hanging. Okay, so thank you. The Benjamin Franklin would write in aphorisms, and they would rhyme and they would really make the point, and they had a very good kind of form to them. And I'm seeing this in Margaret Chase Smith as well, as her mention of courtesy. So there is definite seventh ray there and sixth ray and maybe first ray, we'll see, because there's some kind of quiet courage that is really present. So thank you for those. That reminds us of the opposite of the kind of thing that we're talking about, that attitude, I'm going to save my neck, and at the same time have the negative values, which I really love, emerge. And we're going to see a lot of that today. The honorableness or dishonorableness of our various Congress people and senators, representatives and senators, is going to emerge strongly before our eyes. Now, all of this is leading to good things and white magic, the use of soul powers for spiritual ends. That's what we all want to do, don't we? We want to come in touch with our own higher powers and not distort them or abuse them in any way. We want to bring them through to advance the divine plan. And maybe if you've been with this work for a while now, you have felt that some soul powers have begun to emerge in you. A deeper understanding and, excuse me, foresight and certain ray potencies according to the ray of your soul, and generally ability to throw light on subjects and to understand more deeply. Um, Soul powers can be negatively appropriated by the personality, but that's not what's meant here. And I trust that this first sentence is exactly right for people such as we are. The identification of oneself with reality. Okay. Well, uh, reality is something that is masked by the distortions of the astral plane and the misinterpretations of the lower mental plane. Did someone have something to say? Okay, I just sometimes hear little sounds.
Alex,
Al-
Alex has
Alex
her.
says, okay, yeah. Okay. Sorry, Alex. And there you go, Alex.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, you can hear me. Thank you, Joe, for that, and Karen, who took the words right out of my mouth about not being the type to sit on the fence. This is completely clarified for me this week, in particular in my reflections and meditations, that people in power, people who are in power, are there to be informed, to know, and to decide. And it's just made it clear to me, because we have the mirror situation here in the UK as in the US, with members of parliament sitting on the fence. It's just very clear to me now that we come to this crunch moment, and the big talk is once again turning the decision back to the people, having a people's vote, having a second referendum, this sort of thing. It's dividing people so much because the people don't have the information, and they don't have the, well, they don't have the information, they don't have the ability to decide. So the people in power say, well, because they want to, as you say, protect themselves. They want to protect themselves, and that when you're trying to make everybody happy, you end up not making anyone happy. And this is what they're trying to do, is to take care of their careers and themselves. Whereas actually what should happen is, as I said, the people in power should have the information, should take a side and make a decision. But instead, so we have this constant wavering, which turns out to be, as you said, moral cowardice, in fact, and a kind of appeasement. And the other problem is that people find it difficult to understand which is black and which is white, right? And this we see with all the dissembling that's going on in all the countries. We're in a state of confusion. So which is, who are the good guys, who are the bad guys? And the first problem is to recognize. That is the biggest difficulty. That's where glamour creates the biggest fog of all, is to recognize who's on the side of the soul and who isn't, and then to what to do about that. First, recognizing what to do about that. So this is what we see so much, is that whether it's the president or the prime minister, that the people who see this dissembling, they don't know what to do about it. So we see the evil, we don't know what to do about it, how to confront it. First is seeing it, and then what to do about it. And Marianne Williamson was a very good candidate who makes the point of naming things, like naming what it is that is wrong, that is going wrong, that is going in the wrong direction, and then deal with it. So people don't see it, they don't recognize, they don't name it, they don't know what to do about it. And so we have all of our politicians now sitting on the fence and saying, oh, well, we're going to let the people decide. And I'm realizing what's wrong about that.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good. These are some factors connected with the seventh ray, and as we know, England, or at least where Parliament is held, with its sort of seventh ray personality, you know, it's got a Libran number 7 in there, very, very strong. The whole ritualistic attitude is very strong. and the work of formality very strong. So it may even be more prominent in the UK with you than in the United States. Now, was it Joe? Were you speaking, or who was speaking?
No, I was trying. This is Tuija. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to everybody. Thank you again, Alex. What I wanted to point out when we are going through this confusion, one big part, what we have to remember now is that because Shambhala impact the year 2000, these energies are still working through the societies, and how we are responding. It's not for us so much to look what what people are now doing. It is what disciples are doing. This is the key thing for every country, how the disciples are clear in their understanding, how they are clear where they are standing. So people will be always confused when we have strong parties fighting with each other. And in that sense, this turmoil, which is all over, there are so many aspects of it. It is what the planet is going through as well. These descending energies of Shambhala. And DK pointed out that the problem is not so much with humanity in relationship with Shambhala, but humanity in relationship with the hierarchy. And that's why we have to look all of the groups of disciples and aspirants, how we are united together, where we see more all these separating thoughts about each other, where we are not really supporting in our hearts our friends in the field. There we see where is the key problem. If we would be standing really strong, if we would be really available for hierarchy, for the masters, if we would be working steadily, rhythmically, there would be much easier times for whole humanity.
Yes, did not the Tibetan say basically that the problem is with Christ's own household, and not so much with the people who would fall into a more constructive line if the disciples of the world did their task as they should. So we have to, we are chastened by that because we have another very serious situation in the next 5.5 years, when some kind of all-out attempt by these forces of anti-democratic formal forces will come to the fore. So we have to put the pressure on ourselves in the rhythmic, well-organized, and deep manner. The depth of feeling is what DK calls for in the formation of the triangles, and in general, the depth of feeling of the heart. Master Moria does not make a pejorative out of the word feeling. He says the feeling of the heart is absolutely essential. So, we have to approach with love, intelligence, and will the whole thing that is falling upon us. And if the worst should happen, if there is what you call a re-election in the United States, and if the Brexit does occur, then a whole new list of formidable tasks and problems will descend, and will call for even more from the disciples. Okay.
Michael, can I just respond to what you just said? Thank you so much, Tuija. And it's so true that the people are always confused, and that's why I just suddenly realized that this whole business of letting people, let the people decide, have a referendum, this sort of thing, that the hierarchy, the higher level for the average person is the government and the people who are in charge. But similarly, as you say, higher than that, higher than the physical government is the planetary government, and and that's where we align, and as you say, hold that line. And I just want to say on a positive note that the messages that I've been receiving, not by the thousands admittedly, but there is this positive desire I've heard and experienced amongst aspirants to to care about something outside of themselves and to come together. And particularly this interest in what's happening in the United Kingdom, to understand how it affects the rest of the world. That's really a positive step, and perhaps we can build on that. And certainly just the fact that the desire is there must be a first step. I think this is all shaking us out of our
maybe we'll do it. Maybe we'll do it right this time, and the kind of thing that occurred before World War II, it's kind of heartbreaking to realize that if the disciples had risen to the occasion, then the horrors of that war would not have precipitated as they did. And we have another opportunity years later, and after having been able to assess not only externally but esoterically what happened, maybe we'll do it right. So let's hold out for that.
Just shortly responding to that because we see during these times of testing and these times of crisis, we see always those people whose heart will respond, and they will come together. They have the willingness. Let us think about the creator from Sweden in climate change arenas. There are those who are now standing up, and it should be. But as we had the problem when Jesus was working with the Christ, and then during the wars, so this is a kind of similar thing, the same time for us disciples, that how much we really are willing to come together. There are those people, I don't deny that, but we have to look the whole field. And wherever we see those groups who are just pointing out their advancement or their speciality, that is not the way where the Christ is teaching us. The Christ, when he left, he said, love each of other as I was loving thee or you. So there is a message for us that we have to make this ripple of energies which are in the aura of humanity, that we will smoothen the ways, and we will smoothen the willingness to come together. Because we see all of those separating forces working through the societies. And when people are weak and scared, they will go always behind those who seems to be strongest. So that is a challenge for all the disciples. We become now the strong ones, and we just hold occultly the space, demanding, because we have that right to demand the hierarchy to step in and the Christ to step in. And it is very good to study the methods what TK was giving us during the world wars. They saw the rising of Hitler, but there was not any single teaching to go against Hitler. There was the teaching of the triangle work. There was the teaching of the methods to work meditatively. So those methods still stands.
Exactly. Yeah. Good points. Look, we will be summoned now to the peak of our ability, because this now gets very, very serious. And the reason it's so serious is that the lords of form know that in the year 2025, the great conclave will be meeting, and very important decisions about the whole reappearance aspect will be made, and this will spell the defeat of the lords of form for a long time. So they're fighting for their life. And we have to fight with them. As Master DK said, see that you battle. That's what he said. Okay, let's... Anne Veronica said something here. Between the invasiveness of the sixth ray and the attitude of standing on the fence, it's difficult to find the middle way. Well, the fourth ray, he said, will help us. We're going to meditate on the fourth ray today and its tendency towards confused combat. It is the ray of humanity, and humanity, as you've all been saying, is characterized by this confusion, and the first tendency is to fight for, what you believe and all of the confusion. But this will resolve, he said, and there's no reason for real apprehension. In other words, he's counting a lot on the harmonizing effect of the fourth ray, which comes in power at the same time as the great conclave. Okay, let's see here. And Kim has to be, she had to leave early. Okay, right. Okay, good. I hope you'll be back, Kim. You usually are, so hope everything works out. Now, let's go on a little bit more. Here we are. Identification of oneself with reality. If distortion and illusion are taken care of, we can do that. Many people are very far from knowing what reality is, and it takes a certain honesty with oneself and ability to see how oneself might be contributing to the distortion in the psychological field, and perhaps very few of the representatives and so forth are willing to go through that process. We're straightening things out, right order through right magic. What is right magic in this case? It is the will of the soul to bring forward certain aspects of the plan and to have the soul-infused personality cooperate with manifesting that vision. And then we will try to end this ridiculous chaos. Sometimes I look at these leaders running around, and their whole response mechanism seems to simply be reaction. And they look like they're in chaos, and they have not thought the thing through. Power to cooperate with the whole instead of the part, okay? So that ability to manifest and to make correct order will apply to a larger vision and not just one's self-satisfied personal order. It's like a war is raging outside your house, but the living room is in perfect order and all the picture frames are straight, So we can open up to the larger picture. Understanding of the plan, the seventh ray is very connected with the divine plan, and in the age of Aquarius, the first ray, the second ray, and the seventh will be very prominent, and the seventh working as an aspect of the third over which Master R is presiding. The Mahachohan, that's what he is now, is presiding over the third and the seventh rays, and this ability to plan and to execute. This is the thing. The third ray can plan, but the seventh ray is the great executor and can bring into, ideally, perfect manifestation that which is seen. The magical work of interpretation is interesting because it touches on the higher archetypes and brings them into the lower Mosaic world. And then you have the statement fulfilled that the highest and the lowest meet. In other words, we have these things that have to descend. How shall they be interpreted to humanity and introduced into the often chaotic context of the lower 18 subplanes? The seventh ray has the way to do this, and the manifestation of divinity is obvious. If anything is going to bring the archetype down onto the dense physical plane, it's going to be the seventh ray, which is getting more and more powerful all the time. So that's kind of the discussion there of the negativities leading to that which is positive. Does anybody have anything you would like to say? Because, I think one of the things we have to do is actually look at the glamours in the glamour book. And, we will see that they fit in very well with the extract we have been using from Esoteric Psychology, Volume 2. But these are all very positive things and progressive. And when the reactionary nature of the frightened sixth ray, the sixth ray is carrying a huge amount of fear, and it's found in the solar plexus and to a degree within the sacral center, which is ruled by Mars to a degree, and the ancient fears emerged there. We've been told in the instruction to RSW, whose sacral center was causing some problems, and she was very scorpionic, and she had a very strong Mars operative, and he says the ancient fears of humanity are stored in this Martian sacral center. So, sixth ray is full of fear. You lose your way, you go to hell forever, or the opposite of paradise. And that's enough to make you want to make the right choice. On the other hand, the seventh ray is much more mental, more logical, more practical, and more radiant in a certain sense. It will manifest divinity perfectly. Anybody want to say anything about that before we mention the glamours given to us in the glamour book? Well, maybe we'll consider them kind of all together, okay? And I've pointed a few of these things out in the foregoing. The glamour of magical work exalts the ego, and you become the center of everything instead of the soul and the love energy being central to your work. There's a feeling of great power as you're able to command lesser lives. I say, there are some magicians that have fallen into this, and the great example, of course, is Crowley with his, how does it go? I think Sun in Libra, and the moon in Capricorn, and Leo as his rising sign. So and there were a number of magicians that had choices about which side they would serve. Even Hitler, with his very strong Libra ascendant, had a choice. The glamour of magical work, and it gives you a tremendous feeling of power and self-worth, and you stand out among others. The glamour of the relation of the opposites, and this has a lot to do with the whole issue, the sexual issues, as down here in sex magic. So what are the opposites, male and female? And you find a lot of that. And maybe we can talk about the higher and the lower opposites. We'll come back to that one. The glamour of the subterranean powers. There is a certain pride among certain magicians about the ability to raise hell, so to speak. It's called lower magic, goethia, something like that. It's not a higher type of magic. It's the desire to raise the demons up and to command them, to command lower intelligent forces who have disappeared, as it were, into the subterranean realms because they are on the path of degeneration. And why do you do it? It's oftentimes just to show off your power. No good seems to come of it. And Aleister Crowley was very proud once about his ability to raise up a certain demon and make him obey. So there's always the hidden factors. Now, interestingly, DK told us that psychoanalysis comes in under the seventh ray. There's all kinds of plutonic things in the lower realms which people like Freud and other analysts raised up as if they were in control. And maybe they were in control for some people, but they almost took a certain pleasure in destroying Victorian society, which always minimized or overlooked the compulsive forces that were hidden from mankind's understanding. The glamour of that which brings together, you stand in the middle and you can bring high and low, east and west, everything together. And again, you are the actor and you are the important person in this task of uniting things. Again, the highest and the lowest meet. This is a distortion of that particular mantra. We can imagine here the glamour of the physical body, and we see ourselves going into it more and more. It's not that you shouldn't exercise and be fit and all of that, but it's as if the physical body is the real individual, and we see some kind of extraordinary care, even through, plastic surgery is already way beyond what it should be. One can see correcting, real terrible. People sometimes have that hair lip, and that can be corrected. And when there are real deformities, they can be corrected. But people are looking for the perfect body, and they will have as many as 25 or 30 plastic surgeries, correcting this, correcting that. Do you think Michael Jackson had any seventh ray? When you look at him dance, and you look at the kind of image he presented, and the many, many plastic surgeries he had, the perfect physical body. So we're moving in a completely different direction. Basically, the body will be as perfect as it can be, but we're heading into the etheric body. That's what we have to understand, from where we have to work, and we have to consider that as the true physical body, and that will be the gift of the seventh ray and the Aquarian age, rather than this very tangible, heavy illusion. I've seen this a lot of times, the glamour of the mysterious and the secret. You ask a person a question, and they say, oh, that's one of the secrets of initiation. Unfortunately, you are outside the initiation chamber and I am inside. Too bad for you. But, this whole idea of the hermetically sealed chambers. Every type of initiation is hermetically, Hermes, sealed from every other. So that you need special permission, passwords, knocks, whatever you want to call it, to enter into a new chamber of initiation. Now, in a way, that is the way it should be, because there's great dangers for the unwary to enter into energies which they cannot handle. So you have to prove that it is appropriate and timely and right for you to enter, and certain signs and secrets do that. But people use this necessity to show how powerful they are. In other words, the seventh ray is a reflection of the first ray. and it's a power line, and it's on the line of initiation. Rays 1 and 7 rule the path of initiation. So things are hidden from the unready, and the people who fancy themselves to be in a superior position, they hide certain things from you which are not necessary to be hidden. They just do it to exalt their own image. There is the mysterious, and there is that which is secret, that's true, but not if it's attached to the ego, lower ego. The problem is with all of this, if we attach these natural energetic factors to our sense of being the center of things, we're immediately into glamour. We've talked about the glamour of sex magic, and we're going to see more and more of it, especially as it combines with the commercial field, using the power of sex, which is for a particular purpose and largely for the reproduction of the race, to do other things which have selfishness associated with them. I've made the joke, the way, you get dropped off in an airport, and in order to go from one place to another, you have to walk through these stores which sell at exorbitant prices all kinds of perfumes and colognes and, make the body attractive kind of thing. And the images are like, 5, 6, 7 feet tall. And it's just a, overwhelming kind of assault using the power of sex to sell the product. I don't know if you've experienced that, but it really is, it's amazing. And the glamour of the emerging manifested forces, meaning I have power, I have control through my magical methods of bringing things up, bringing things down, bringing things forward, and usually to demonstrate what a proficient magician I am, rather than really offer something for the soul. Okay, so there's some interesting things here. And do you have any comments? Do you find yourself related to anything we've been discussing, etc.? So it's your turn now, if you wish. Let's see. I mean, I think you've seen this glamour of the physical body, It just, if you happen to be looking at TV and you look at the ads, and they're using a lot of physical beauty and being trapped in it in order to gain their way and sell
Michael.
their product. Yes, who's speaking? Who's speaking?
I was saying about this. Yes, sorry. About the glamours of the body. I think it is understandable in that sense, because humanity is heading towards the first initiation, which is upon, or the goal is about having control on the physical plane. And also these glamours, which are based, I think, upon trying to hold the power, but because it's not yet learned that the power is within. It's not upon that you look young, and that's why you are powerful. And that, I think, is very much, USA is the leading country of that. And also in Brazil, it's very interesting, looking at how we should be looking. And there is some healthy streams pouring in. I have been looking also the advertisement that in here, I don't know, it is in America, but here in Europe and Scandinavian countries, you have started to see different looking models, women who are fatter and tall or short. It's not anymore this kind of standard looking that
Yeah.
You have to be only thin. So this is very healthy way of starting to look that we are trying to aim towards the healthy body and not just being artificially young looking.
Yeah, that is the positive side of it. But, you know, we tend to think that the physical body is the great reality, whereas it is the effect of how we live. You know, if we really live rightly in our inner principles, the physical body will probably reflect this. But, you know, I've talked to so many people who think that everything within us, our emotions, our mind, who knows what, is all derived from the physical nature. Like the physicality is the cause of things rather than the effect. And that, I think, contributes to the glamour of the physical body. But you know, you bring up a good point. There's a healthy turn away from making everybody look standard and sick. You know what I mean? So thin you could actually, you know, fall over in sickness. The plus sizes are emerging, and people are declaring some degree of acceptance of their physical form, even when it doesn't fit the standard that the arbiters of beauty say this is beauty. So this is positive, and
And you
yeah,
know,
yeah. Go ahead.
and I was thinking that it could be already the influence of the fourth ray. If you think about artists who are able to see the beauty through not the standard eye, but through just the catching something about the soul. And that's why I was thinking that maybe the fourth ray is already teaching, the higher fourth ray is already teaching us about the individual who is a reflection of its own archetype, or at least on the way of going to that direction. But
You
to
know,
see beauty
yeah.
in difference.
You know what's really, yeah, and that's very, very, very important because, you know, the old saying, it's almost trite cliche that beauty is only skin deep. Well, not real beauty, but the kind of beauty that we have pursued. Way back in 1924, and right before 25, there was a wave of fourth ray energy. If you go to Cosmic Fire and you look up 24 or 25, you'll see that what would be consummated now in the year 2025 actually came in 1925, 1924. So I think we're actually beginning to find this. And for the seventh ray, the highest and the lowest meet. Not just the outer lowest, but we can touch the subtle principles of the human being and bring them down into the body. This is so very important. But look, you know, you're right about America and other places too. We have a superficial idea of who the individual is. And this is a problem with the seventh ray. A certain type in the beginning of superficiality judged by appearances. You know, don't worry about reading the book. The cover is everything, okay? Now, that kind of superficiality has to be seen through and adjusted, and the higher seventh ray will do it. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Well, thank you to you because it's important to realize the trend. We are going to have much healthier physical bodies, DK tells us, in the Aquarian age under the seventh ray. The cultivation will be much more than we expect, much more resilient, much stronger, much more radiant. And you can see that already, you know, in some of the people coming in, and you can see it in the gymnasts, which is a very seventh ray kind of art, you know, that requires great strength at the same time. It is happening. Okay. Anybody else like to say anything here about these particular? Alexandra, there you go. Go.
Yes, just a corollary to what Tuya so rightly says is this: it's the discarding of the wisdom of the elder in our
Uh-huh.
modern times, isn't it? So, and also the fact that the burden of the beauty is on the female, is on the women. So you see a backlash of this now, that, for example, female celebrities complain that there's not enough roles for the older women, Meryl Streep and
Mm-hmm.
those types. Whereas for the male, no matter how much he ages, he always has some sort of role to play. So
Mm-hmm.
just like in Hollywood and films, it's the same in the world, that women fear to look older because their wisdom and what they have to offer is being discarded if they look old.
Yep.
It's
Have you
just
have you seen
ridiculous.
have you seen how many beautiful young women reach a point in their film career when they disappear? They
They
just
disappear.
disappear.
Mm.
In other words,
Yeah.
That is so true.
and then what happens is they reappear after a period of not being useful to the typical type of assessment. They
Yeah.
reappear for the older roles. I've been thinking about Angelica Huston, and people like that. They have this radiant, natural, youthful beauty, but then they reach a point of uselessness. Not Meryl Streep ever, because she's so good.
Mm.
Certain people
Mm.
manage to keep the continuity, but others, they're just gone, and maybe they're gone for
Mm.
good because the natural youthfulness is gone, and not the
Mm.
inner, not the inner wisdom and the inner quality. But again, I think with the seventh ray, in a higher way of assessment, we will get into what's behind the obvious. That's what I'm hoping. When the mantram is fulfilled, the highest and the lowest meet. Right now, the lowest prevails in our superficial society, and seventh ray contributes a lot to that at its present method of expression, but it won't be forever, I think. Okay, okay,
Good. Thank you.
okay. We'll. Yeah, I just see it, and it's so well. I could name names, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to name names. Certain people have had the continuity. Meryl Streep, going back much farther, Betty Davis, she had continuity there. And if they have enough power, inner power, they can bridge the normal tendency to remove them for superficial reasons. They can make the transition. And of course, now we see, I think, some of the men are beginning to carry the beauty burden, if I can call it that way. Just like the birds, the male is the one with all the flashy feathers and colors and all that. Some of the men are beginning to do this, but you can't exactly have a James Bond who's 70 years old, can you? I mean, he has to do too much jumping off of buildings and things. So sometimes there's
Yes,
a,
we can.
oh, okay. Okay, yes, we can. Okay, okay, okay. And should James Bond be a female? Look, what DK said is that the whole issue of sexuality is being decided by humanity at large under the sign Libra. And we have now multiple genders and all kinds of imagination coming in here, and we have objectophiles who fall in love with their radio and or their refrigerator. We have all kinds of things going on. He said the disciple is solving similar problems on a much higher level under the sign Scorpio, but it has to be worked out by humanity under the sign Libra, and it is certainly being, well, I don't know that resolution is here yet, but it's certainly being worked upon. I can see that. Oh, yes, yes, yes. All right, okay. Well, this seems to be where we are. We have completed Well, we're not completed. Okay. But we have gone through the 7 types of individual glamour, and we've added to that some extracts from Esoteric Psychology Volume 2, which basically tell the same story with a few different descriptors. So I guess the important thing is to notice first about ourselves, do we suffer from any of these things, not just the 7th ray stuff, but, everything, unbeknownst to ourselves? Do we make a discovery that, oh yeah, I seem to be susceptible to something here, and identify those things, and then he gives us, and we'll come to it, an individual technique to deal with the individual glamours. But we first have to discover whether we are affected. When in society there prevails a certain tendency that is very powerful, many people are affected by it simply because they're members of society. And we've seen that in the kind of thing that you and Tuya were talking about. We've seen, that women, mostly up to this point, many reject the body form. They don't think they look right. And I suppose there are men coming into that too at the moment. They don't think they look right. And they do all kinds of manipulations and things to fit the standard because it's so strong in society. Now there is a rebellion, and people are coming out as a way just as they are. This whole idea of coming out, it applies in many ways to many things. And a trend, which is artificial, is being reversed. So, but we cannot discount the idea that when a trend is very strong in your society or in your civilization, that you may be affected by it and not even know that you are. So we have to be very observant about how the general milieu can condition us. We can be conditioned simply by our surroundings, even if we do not have that kind of tendency normally within ourselves. It just overcomes us, So let's see among these various things what to watch out for. We've had almost every one of these things has been on television, and we can say that many of the fictional presentations do kind of predict the future. These the occult, the subterranean, all the vampires, all the werewolves, all the whatever they are, all the zombies, they're running all over your television screen. They are the subterranean powers. And the time is coming when, because we oftentimes react negatively first, just like he said, Germany, strength through joy, joy through strength, they got a positive mantra and they used it for negative purposes, and they were the first to do it. So here are all of these occult things happening, and true occultism is not there yet. Here, every factor that you're looking at here probably is emerging first within civilization and not in a positive manner. So we have to turn that all around, and how do we do it? Right thinking, right imagination, right projection of energy, right group fortification of the projection of the positive corrective energies. And also just to make sure that we're not carrying around a bunch of glamours that we project upon other people. Because that's always the way, It's in you, you don't know it, and the next thing, you are, the other person is that, you see. So we have to do a lot of personal work in ourselves to make sure we're not being afflicted by these negativities. And that is going to take some patience and some real perception, because as you know, your wife or your husband or someone close to you will, or your children, whatever, they will see the glamour in you often before you see it in yourself. And of course, vice versa. It's always easier to see it in the other person. So we have some work to do here, and DK has outlined that to which we may be susceptible, but which we must discard if we're going to be of much use to aiding humanity as a whole to be rid of its glamours. So we've studied for a few weeks, a number of weeks, these things. Is there anything anybody has to say about this study, which has gone on, I think, for nearly 2 months now, weekly for nearly 2 months? Every one of these glamours is there, you know, and listed. And they're quite different from each other, really. And they are distortions and keep us away from reality. You know, like DK said, well, there's many people who are so concentrated on doing the right thing physically that they ignore the inner cultivation, see? So, you know, strong seventh ray, yeah, especially that, I think, doing the right thing physically, and also ray 6, all these have combinations that cause them. Now we're going to meditate today on confused combat. It's a tendency of human beings to use the fourth ray in a combative way before using it as in an harmonious manner. And boy, we see this all over the world. Fight first, think later. You know, and one doesn't even know what one is fighting about, hardly, and whether the motive is any good anyway. So we, people like ourselves, we come along, we know something about the teaching, we're supposed to help clarify the human mind on many important causative issues, so they're not just trapped in the world of effects. Does anybody have anything to say about this study that we've been undergoing? Anything you want to? And have you maybe identified with a few things? Because probably the truth of the matter is that we should. You know, unless we're a 4th degree initiate, something of these is going to linger within us. Yeah. Let's see. Anybody? Or maybe it's just so obvious that, of course, you realize.
Karen's hand is up.
Okay, here we go. Aha. Thank you. Okay, Karen, what's going on here?
She's self-muted.
Karen?
Am I unmuted now?
You're good. Okay.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to say and thank you for doing this. It's been very helpful to me, even though I've read over these in our study group. You know, we've studied these, you know, they've just been very helpful. And one thing I didn't know was about comparing them with esoteric psychology and those pages there. That would have been so helpful for our study group. So maybe we'll do it again, but it's been very helpful to me, I have to say. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you, Karen. And for me too, every time I go over it, I see a little something that I didn't see before. But we can, you know, the glamour of having no glamours, the glamour of being done with glamour, I've seen displayed among many people who shouldn't be displaying that attitude, because it is some kind of inability to look deeply enough within oneself to see what is actually preventing identification with reality, or identification as reality. He did mention reality and how distortion really kills it, you know. So we've got to see how we are blocking ourselves. Obviously, every one of us is on our way. We're not masters yet, and one day we'll be high in the realm of consciousness, but we have to get there by seeing the error of our ways and removing those errors. And they exist, and they are subtle. Okay, so a lot of refined observation is needed by us, every one of us. Thank you, Karen. Okay, now, anybody else want to? Yes, Alexandra. Okay, hold on. And you're self-muted. Wait a second. Self-muted. Only self-muted. There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I just want to add my heartfelt thanks for this, because I'm never ever tire of this study of the glamours. Never tire of it. I have. I think the first esoteric books I purchased were your Tapestry of the Gods, 2 big volumes. I love to refer to, because the first way it says of DK says of recognizing your ray energy is recognizing the glamours, because we recognize our personality a lot faster than we recognize our soul and soul energies. So I have recognized glamours in just about all of the rays, and therefore it's very useful, and thank you very, very much.
The inclusive second ray, you know, as he says, it responds to all the glamours. It's very good at getting rid of them, too. It's probably the ray that helps most in deglamorizing oneself. But in a way, it identifies with everything. It's very inclusive. So it gives a broad point of view. And if you can stand what you see, of course, DK makes a joke at one point. He says, there are some fine people in my work who feel almost thrilled or excited when they are up against some glamour, you know, as if it's outside themselves, and they're the combatant and they will overcome it. And but it is, you know, it's so subtle and so dangerous and so difficult to break out of for the ordinary non-aspiring person, that DK and Alice Bailey they use the word horror. They use the word horror to describe their attitude towards glamour. And they each had a horror of what it could do. So we see it, you know, let's just say in America, in the UK, the 2 most prominent second-ray soul countries, we see a real big attack on democracy and on the light and on helping people be self-sufficient in their judgments and their decisions. We see the effort to delude. Now, this is interesting. He says the first 3 ray types, if they succumb to their dweller, they become, ray 1, the destroyer of souls. Ray 2, the deluder of souls. Now look what's going on in these 2 ray countries and how the people are being misled by those who understand them and are still selfish and want their own way. And then finally, ray 3, as you know, the manipulator of souls. This is if you give in to your dweller. Yeah. Who's speaking?
This is Tuija again. Thank you, Alex, because it just reminded me about how important is the Leo energy. that there is some fascinating thing happening in the labor of Leo, that how we start to hunt our lower self, and it is happening in our mind. And when we catch into that, I think the divine plan or divine play behind it, it comes very fascinating. How can I catch another thought in myself? Because the player of the lower one has all the tricks of the world to play a game. And how do we develop this kind of mindset that we are able to like go beyond or behind that what tries to fool us? So it's a similar thing what you were saying about the countries now, but that is very much related to Leo, what happens there.
The hunter of oneself, right? Two lions, or the higher lion, the lower lion, or Hercules and the lion, the hunter, always escaping until cornered. We have to learn how to, what do you say, corner ourselves, get that lower self that has to be adjusted into a corner so it cannot escape. And many people identifying with the personality, they just like to slip out the back door of the cave and escape.
And the point of that is because Leo is related to the play. So there comes this kind of fascination of that. So not the depression, seeing that how bad I am and how low and whatever. But in Leo comes this fascination and joy. What a wonderful thing is to catch up oneself.
Okay. Well, takes one to know one, right? So some of us have been hunting ourselves, and when Leo is very strong in the chart, we are advised, really, this is the task of the moment. Okay, well, we're getting to that point, friends, when we should have a meditation. Otherwise, we're going to run way over. But since we are at the summary moment, in a way, for this particular section, then I don't want to foreclose the possibility that you can comment on anything regarding the past 2 months of study on this material, but try to make it succinct as possible if you have something further that you want to add. Okay, well, my hope for all of us is that we recognize our glamours, and especially the most prominent one or ones, which are really preventing us from being useful aspects of the divine plan. Somehow that we recognize what the obstacles within us really are, and that we are able to use intelligent understanding and also the occult techniques to banish these things. There's probably one big glamour which is most prominent for each one of the rays. I won't get into what it is, except, just to say that for Ray 2, it's oftentimes self-pity of some kind. And for Ray 3, it's oftentimes manipulation of some kind. Or Ray 1, some kind of destructiveness which should not be occurring. There's a kind of a destructiveness which should be occurring. But there's oftentimes the destruction of the good, and DK even criticized that in first-rate terms, and he mentioned his friend Akbar. Well, maybe Akbar was not his friend in that life, but Akbar was Master Morya, who certainly became his friend. And he talked about how the first-rate type is always interrupting the positive progress of civilization. And then he lists a bunch of people that have done that. And Akbar, the former Master Moria, was one of those who were listed under that kind of unhelpful, destructive intervention. We could go on to the other rays as well. Well, look, we'll probably come back and like yourself, I think you would say, I'm always coming back to this list around page 120 in the Glamour book. I'm always coming back to it because I find it's a great refresher of memory and clarifies the situation that I might be in. So maybe you'll find it to be the same for yourself. So now I'll tell you what, we have just a little bit of time. Let's work on this, which is and we're going to this sort of fighting response, which just raises, because it is often thoughtless, a lot of dust and dirt, and because of it adds to the glamour, the distortion, the veiling, the misunderstanding, which is always there. So that'll be our kind of focus: constant combat or confused combat. We have a politician in the world today whose mentor said, if somebody hits you, hit him back 10 times harder. And never apologize. And if there's any kind of criticism of you, well, basically destroy the person who criticized you. Never take anything with equanimity and quietness and analysis. Always rush forth to combat. And, a place where we see that, and which is worth reading or memorizing. Let's see if I can. Oh, that's rushed forth. And here it is. Now, this is a high being, the Blessed One, but we are really that being. The Blessed One rushed forth to combat. He saw existence as two warring forces and fought them both. See the confused combat? Loaded with the panoply of war, he stood midway, looking two ways. The clash of battle, the many weapons he had learned to use, the longing not to fight, the thrill of finding those he fought were but brothers and himself, the anguish of defeat, the paean of his victory, these held him down. All these things are keeping us from being truly real. The Blessed One paused and questioned, whence come the victory and whence defeat? Am I not the Blessed One himself? I will invoke the angels to my aid. And then the resolution of this, how we solve this problem of excessive, spontaneous, reactive combat. The trumpet sound went forth, rise up and fight and reconcile the armies of the Lord. There is no battle. Force the conflict to subside. Send for the invocation for the peace of all. Form out of two, one army of the Lord. Let victory crown the efforts of the Blessed One by harmonizing all. And I think we can see the Buddhic energy at work, the plane of harmony, the fourth plane, and then finally peace lies behind the warring forces. So to understand the rays very, very well, although it may be a little more advanced method of understanding them, we turn to Esoteric Psychology 2, page, well, 30, probably 36 or 35, where we will, yeah, it's 36. And some deeper insight into the nature of the ray and its liabilities will come to you. And by the way, I've recorded all this video discussion of every line here in all of these, and you can find them on Makara if you feel like listening. All right, let's get into our meditation. So first, we enter the silence with this particular meditation. Okay, so the glamour is confused combat, constant combat, reactive combat, first instinct to fight rather than to intuit the situation. And, excuse me for some of these, every once in a while a sound appears. Now, we'll use the protective formula, and we'll use the cross with the eyes. And we'll trace light in this cross. So we say, as a soul I work in light, and darkness cannot touch me. I take my stand within the light. I work, and from that point, I never move. And that light is radiant. The lighted cross before each one of us, and before the group, a larger cross. Now we bring the lights together, the light of matter, the vital light up to the mental plane, and the light of mind is on the mental plane, and the two are together. The vitality sustaining the thought. And we connect with the light of the soul. We try to visualize that, try to feel that. And we bring that light down to the mental plane and merge it with the other two lights. So now soul light descends and three lights are one. And from this triple light as one will emerge our beam, which is both an instrument of detection and an instrument of dissipation. And we say together, the light is one, and in that light shall we see light. This is the light that turns the darkness into day. Okay. Then, the formula. And we visualize, as we use this formula, we're connecting two worlds, and in a way we're using the gesture of the magician. You know how that works. One hand above, one hand below. It's the occult chain. Radiance are we and power. We stand forever with our hands stretched out, linking the heavens and the earth. The inner world of meaning and the subtle world of glamour. We reach into the light and bring it down to meet the need. We reach into the silent place and bring from thence the gift of understanding. And thus, with the light we work and turn the darkness into day. And as these words are spoken, the group members visualize the great searchlight they have created, turning its light upon the astral plane. Let's do that. And now we will strengthen this beam through the spiritual will. With power upon its beam, the light is focused on the goal. So this beam is searching out the areas where constant conflict, confused combat are found, and tends to change them so that something else takes the place of these two undesirables. And that something else will be that which can lead to peace. So for just a moment, think about the fourth kingdom in nature. The Blessed One rushed forth to combat all the fighting going on, nation against nation, ego against ego in the lower sense. All the disagreements, all the inharmony. And we think, what have these things brought to humanity? Look at the attacks. Just recently, an attack by Turkey upon the Kurds who are found in Syria. The Israelis and the Palestinians, the Chinese and the Muslim group in Asia, the Uyghurs, however one pronounces that, in Bangladesh, Rohingya people and the Buddhist people. We're somewhat maybe insulated from this in the countries in which we live, but not really at all. In the UK and in America, this warfare is raging. It seems that man is just ready to fight, even when it does not necessarily offer the best solution. Okay. Now let's use these words of power. Visualizing the dissipation of this warring tendency in the unthinking human being. This frictional, warlike, reactive combat, which is instinctive almost, and oftentimes confused as no good result can emerge. And we say, the power of our united light prevents the appearance of the glamour of constant confused combats. The power of our united light negates the quality of these glamours from affecting humanity. So the quality of reactive, constant, confused combat is negated. And finally, the power of our united light destroys the life behind this glamour of reactive, constant, confused combats. Outside the United Nations, the sculpture representing the biblical prophecy, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks, nor shall they practice war anymore. So let's go into the silence, and we visualize the light penetrating the glamour and producing its weakening and its dissipation. We have instruments of war today, and they are becoming ever more threatening to the survival of humanity. But there's an old myth involving Vulcan and Venus and Mars. And the motive of these instruments has been Martian, and Vulcan has been employed to make them. But Vulcan can also make the instruments of peace, the plow and the pruning hook for harvesting. The earth can be made fruitful, Venus the symbol of the fruit, and harvested with the pruning hook, and this is what is needed in the peaceable kingdom. You will notice we're in Libra now. We're very close now to the full moon. Tonight at 8 o'clock GMT, we'll have a pre-full moon webinar, and then at the exact moment of the full moon, which is sort of 13th, 14th, depending on where you are, we will have the broadcast. This is the time to think about peace, what brings it, and the absence of the primitive warring response that seems to exalt the ego, lower ego of some people. Okay, friends. We'll draw our light back, our searchlight onto the mental plane, redistribute the light, and be convinced that a little bit of work has been done. We are longing for peace, the right kind of peace, not peace at any price, which is a fourth ray abuse. We're trying to look at the larger picture and have the peace for all, and the reduction of the Martian tendency in humanity, the unthinking Martian tendency. This is what we look for. So let's sound the Om 3 times, assuming that some of this work has been effective to help clear away glamour, illusion, and Maya. So let's keep peace on our mind and use this Libran full moon to maximum advantage. Maybe we'll see you there tonight for the Libra pre-full moon. That's at our... Goodness, do we have that link, Joe, or do you have it handy? I usually put it in or come close to putting it in. It's on YouTube. So if you go to our YouTube station just beneath the picture, you'll find also the link for the upcoming pre-full moon, and then on the evening of the 13th, which is Sunday evening, and here in Europe it's more like the 14th in the wee hours, we will work with the broadcasts of the Libra full moon, the exact moment, full moon. So there have been some untoward developments in the world. Let's see what we can do to help bring them round and bring them right. Many blessings from all of us, Tuya, Olivia, myself, and the whole team, and we can be inwardly effective. So we'll see you later. All the best to you, and bye.